If you've ever been dismissed by your own family, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You're not going to want to miss what happened next. My name is Sarah Anderson, and for 28 years I was the family punchline. The daughter who settled for a basic bank job, while my brother Marcus built his empire of luxury car dealerships. The disappointment who wore sensible suits instead of designer labels. The boring one who talked about interest rates at dinner while Marcus closed million-dollar deals. What my family didn't know was that I wasn't just working at Sentinel Private Bank. I was the youngest investment director in the institution's 127-year history, personally managing a portfolio worth $2.3 billion and controlling approval authority for every commercial loan over $500,000 in the tri-state area. They had no idea because I never told them. And I had very good reasons. Started 12 years ago when I was 16. My grandmother passed away and left me $50,000. Her entire life savings. She was the only person who ever believed in me, who saw past my quiet nature and recognized something my parents never did. The will was explicit. The money was mine alone for my education. My father demanded I contribute to the family by giving Marcus $30,000 for his first dealership down payment. When I refused, citing grandma's wishes, he said something I'll never forget. Your grandmother wasted her life savings on the wrong grandchild. Marcus is going places. You'll be lucky to manage a cash register. I invested that $50,000 in my education instead. Full scholarship to state school, but I used grandma's money for living expenses, networking events, finance certifications. While Marcus got family investments and constant praise, I built my career in silence. Summer internships at regional banks. Night classes for my Series 7 and 63 licenses. Weekend studying for my CFA. By 23 I was an associate at Sentinel. By 25, a senior loan officer. By 27, investment director. The person who decided which businesses got funded and which didn't. The person who could greenlight an 8-figure loan or kill it with a single signature. My family knew I worked at the bank. They assumed I was a teller, maybe a branch manager if they were feeling generous. I never corrected them because I wanted to see something. Would they ever value me without knowing about my success? Would they ever be proud of who I was, not what I could do for them? The answer became clear at every family gathering. Marcus would arrive in his latest luxury vehicle, and my parents would parade him around like a prize. Marcus closed another dealership, 15 now across 3 states. Mom would announce to anyone within earshot. When I arrived in my practical Honda Accord, Dad would pat my shoulder with barely concealed pity. Still at the bank, sweetheart? Well, not everyone can be an entrepreneur like your brother. I'd smile and say, still there. It pays the bills. What I didn't mention was that my annual compensation package was $340,000, or that I'd just approved a $12 million loan to a tech startup that would triple in value within 2 years, earning me a 6-figure bonus. 3 months ago the dynamic shifted. Marcus announced at Sunday dinner that he was expanding the empire. A flagship luxury dealership in the city's premium district. The crown jewel, he called it. We're talking $5 million in inventory alone. Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Lamborghini. Ultra-high net worth clientele only. My father beamed. That's my son. Thinking big. Always thinking big. Marcus continued, chest puffed with confidence. I've got a meeting at Sentinel Private Bank next month. Need a $5 million line of credit for inventory and build-out. They'd be idiots not to approve it. My dealerships did $47 million in revenue last year. Something cold settled in my stomach. Sentinel Private Bank. My bank. A $5 million commercial loan. My approval authority. Sounds ambitious, I said carefully. Sentinel's pretty selective with their commercial lending. Marcus laughed. Please, Sarah. This is real business, not whatever paperwork you shuffle. Banks fight over clients like me. Mom patted his hand. Sarah wouldn't understand this level of finance, honey. She's never dealt with real money. I took a sip of water and said nothing. But I was already thinking about Marcus's financials. I'd seen his dealership group's name cross my desk twice in the past year, both times in risk assessment reports. High debt-to-equity ratio. Concerning cash flow patterns. Inventory financing that kept getting extended. I'd made a mental note to watch that account. Now it was about to become my problem directly. Over the next 4 weeks I did what I always did. My job. Marcus's loan application came through official channels. As investment director, anything over $500,000 landed on my desk for final review. I assigned it to my senior analyst, Maria, without mentioning the family connection. I wanted an objective assessment first. Maria's report came back with a yellow flag. Applicant shows strong revenue but concerning leverage ratios. Existing debt service is 43% of gross profit. 3 payment extensions in the past 18 months. Credit utilization at 87% across all facilities. Recommend additional collateral or personal guarantee before approval. I dug deeper myself, pulling 5 years of financial statements, tax returns, credit reports. The picture that emerged wasn't pretty. Marcus's empire was a house of cards. Impressive from the outside, hollow underneath. He'd been borrowing to cover previous borrowing, using new dealership revenue to make payments on old ones. Classic signs of overextension. The flagship expansion wasn't growth. It was desperation. One more gamble to try and revenue his way out of a debt hole. I prepared my analysis with zero emotion. This wasn't about family. This was about fiduciary responsibility to my institution and our investors. A $5 million unsecured line to an already over-leveraged dealership group? Declined. Not even close. But I didn't cancel the meeting. I wanted to see how this would play. The week before the appointment, Marcus was insufferable. At Sunday dinner, he'd brought architectural renderings of the new dealership. 12,000 square feet. Floor-to-ceiling glass. This is going to put me in a different category entirely. Dad studied the plans with reverence. You've always had vision, son. Always. Marcus glanced at me. Sarah, you should come to the bank meeting. It might be educational for you. See how major deals actually get done. Mom laughed. Oh, Marcus, Sarah would be so out of place. Can you imagine? She probably doesn't even know what a commercial line of credit is. Something in me snapped. Not anger. Calculation. Actually, that sounds interesting. What day is your appointment? Marcus looked surprised but pleased. Thursday, 2 p.m. But seriously, Sarah, this is going to be high-level stuff. Complex financial instruments. You might not follow the conversation. I'll try my best, I said, keeping my voice humble. Maybe I'll learn something. That Thursday morning, I dressed carefully. My usual work attire, tailored navy suit, Cartier watch, a gift to myself when I made director. Subtle makeup. Professional but understated. I drove my Honda to the bank, parked in my reserved spot in the executive garage, and took the private elevator to the executive floor. My office overlooked the city from the 42nd floor. Corner office, glass walls, my name on the door. Sarah Anderson, Investment Director. On my desk sat 3 files. The top one was labeled Marcus Anderson / Anderson Luxury Auto Group / $5 million LOC application. I'd read it cover to cover a dozen times. I knew every number, every discrepancy, every red flag. My assistant, Jennifer, buzzed at 1:45 p.m. Your 2 p.m. is here. Shall I show them to conference room A? Give me 5 minutes, then bring them up. I gathered my materials, including a second file I'd prepared, one my family hadn't seen yet. Then I walked to conference room A, the same room where we conducted all major loan negotiations. 20-foot mahogany table, leather chairs. Walls lined with photographs of the bank's 127-year history. I stood by the window back to the door reviewing my notes. At exactly 2 p.m. I heard voices in the hallway. My father's booming laugh. Marcus's confident tone. Mom's excited chatter. They'd brought the whole family to witness Marcus's triumph. The door opened. Jennifer's professional voice. Mr. Anderson, please make yourself comfortable. Ms. Anderson will be with you shortly. I heard Marcus say, actually, funny coincidence. My sister works here. Basic position, but she was curious about the process, so we told her she could observe if. I turned around. The look on Marcus's face was almost worth 12 years of condescension by itself. Sarah. Mom's voice came out strangled. What are you doing in this office? I smiled and sat at the head of the table. Hello, Marcus. Thank you for coming. Please sit down. Dad's eyes were darting around the room, taking in the executive furnishings, the city view, my position at the table head. I don't understand. Where's the loan officer? You're looking at her. I opened my portfolio. Actually, my official title is Investment Director. I have final approval authority for all commercial loans over $500,000. Which brings us to your application, Marcus. The color was draining from Marcus's face. You're the decision maker? I am. I slid a document across the table. I've reviewed your application thoroughly. Before we discuss my decision, I need to clarify some discrepancies in your financial statements. Mom found her voice. Discrepancies? Marcus's businesses are incredibly successful. Mom. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room. You're welcome to observe this meeting, but the financial discussion is between Marcus and me. As his loan officer, I have some questions. I turned to Marcus, who looked like he might vomit. Your application states $47 million in revenue last year. That's accurate. What you didn't disclose is that your net profit margin was 2.1%, well below industry standard of 7 to 9%. Can you explain why? Marcus's mouth opened and closed. It's industry specific. Luxury vehicles have different. No, they don't. I slid another page across. I pulled comparable dealership groups in your market. They're averaging 6.8% net profit. Your margins are depressed because you're servicing debt at unsustainable levels. Your total debt obligation is $23.7 million across 8 different facilities. Your debt service is consuming 43% of your gross profit. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from tonight. Dad tried to intervene. Now wait a minute, Sarah, I don't think you understand how business. Mr. Anderson. I use my professional voice, the one that made CFOs sit up straight. I have a graduate degree in finance from Wharton, 12 years of commercial lending experience, and I manage a $2.3 billion investment portfolio. I understand exactly how business works. Now please, let me finish with my client. The room went dead silent. I continued, my eyes on Marcus. You've also had 3 payment extensions in the past 18 months. Each time you blamed seasonal cash flow issues. But the pattern shows chronic liquidity problems. You're borrowing from new acquisitions to cover debt service on existing dealerships. Marcus's voice shook. That's standard practice during growth phases. It's not. I pulled out a third document. I also ran a full credit analysis. Your personal credit utilization is at 87%. You have 6 maxed out credit cards with a combined balance of $340,000. You're 3 months behind on your mortgage, $47,000 in arrears. And perhaps most concerning, you've been pulling cash advances from dealership operations to cover personal expenses. That's not standard practice, Marcus. That's embezzlement from your own company. Mom gasped. Dad looked like he'd been punched. Marcus's face had gone from white to red. You had no right to dig into my personal. I had every right. You applied for $5 million of my bank's money. We investigate everything. I leaned forward. Here's what I found. You've built an impressive facade. Luxury cars, designer clothes, the big house. But underneath, you're drowning. You're not expanding from success, Marcus. You're gambling on one more big win to dig yourself out of a hole you've been digging for 5 years. That's not, Marcus started, but his voice cracked. The flagship dealership isn't a growth opportunity. It's a desperate attempt to generate enough revenue to cover your existing debt service. Except the numbers don't work. Even with optimistic projections, you'd need to do $8 million in sales the first year just to break even on the new debt service plus your existing obligations. The luxury market in that district can't support those numbers. 3 other dealers tried and failed in that location in the past decade. I slid the loan application across the table with a red stamp across the top. Declined. Your application is denied. The risk profile is unacceptable. I'm recommending that the bank also review your existing facilities for potential covenant violations. Marcus stared at the document like it might bite him. Sarah, you don't understand the full picture. I understand perfectly. I opened the second file I'd brought. I also pulled these records from our fraud detection unit. Over the past 2 years, you've been falsifying financial statements to your lenders, overstating inventory values by 15 to 22% across multiple reporting periods. That's bank fraud, Marcus. A federal crime. Dad shot to his feet. Now you listen here, young lady. Sit down, Dad. My voice was ice. And never call me young lady in my office again. He sat, shock written across his face. I continued, my eyes never leaving Marcus. I've already forwarded these findings to our fraud investigation team. They're required to report to federal authorities within 48 hours. You should probably retain a criminal defense attorney. Mom started crying. Sarah, he's your brother. How could you? How could I do my job? I stood up, gathering my files. How could I protect my institution from fraud? How could I refuse to enable someone who's been lying to banks for 2 years? I walked to the window, then turned back. You want to know the saddest part? None of this would have happened if you just asked me for help 2 years ago when the problem started. I could have restructured your debt, negotiated better terms, created a realistic business plan. That's literally what I do for our clients, help them succeed. But you never asked, because you never thought I was capable of understanding real business. Because I was just the daughter with the basic bank job. Because I drove a Honda instead of a Bentley. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Sarah, please, if this gets reported, the other banks will call their loans. I'll lose everything. You've already lost everything. I pressed the intercom. Jennifer, please call security to escort our guests out. Dad found his voice, desperate now. Sarah, be reasonable. We're family. Families help each other. Do they? I turned to face him fully. Where was that family loyalty when you told me I'd be lucky to manage a cash register? When Marcus called my career shuffling paperwork? When Mom said I'd never understand real money? I pulled out one more document. This one I'd kept in my personal file for years. This is Grandma's will. The one where she left me $50,000 for my education. The one where Dad demanded I give Marcus $30,000 for his first dealership down payment. Remember what you said when I refused? Dad's face went pale. I read from the document. Your grandmother wasted her life savings on the wrong grandchild. Your exact words, Dad. 12 years ago. I set the paper down gently. Grandma didn't waste a penny. She invested in the grandchild who would honor her sacrifice by building something real. Not the one who would take shortcuts and lie to banks. Security appeared at the door. 2 officers in sentinel uniforms. These guests are leaving, I said professionally. Please escort them to the lobby. Marcus stood on shaking legs. Sir, please, there has to be something. There is something. Accept responsibility. Stop lying to banks. File for bankruptcy protection if needed. Rebuild honestly. But I won't enable your fraud, and I won't risk my institution's capital on someone who's been systematically lying to lenders. Mom grabbed my arm as she passed. You're destroying your brother's life. I gently removed her hand. Marcus destroyed his own life. I'm just refusing to be complicit in the destruction. As they walked toward the door, Dad turned back one last time. We're your family, Sarah. No, I said quietly. Grandma was my family. She believed in me when no one else did. You 3 are just people I happen to share DNA with. The door closed behind them. I stood alone in the conference room, hands steady, breathing calm. No tears. No regret. Just the quiet satisfaction of a job done properly. Jennifer buzzed 20 minutes later. Ms. Anderson, the bank president would like to see you. In his office, President Morrison sat behind his massive desk looking troubled. Sarah, I just heard about the Anderson Luxury Auto meeting. I want you to know the bank fully supports your decision. The fraud indicators alone justified the decline. Thank you, sir. However, he hesitated. I also know Marcus Anderson is your brother. That couldn't have been easy. It was the easiest decision I've made all week, I said honestly. My job is to protect this institution. Personal relationships don't factor into credit decisions. He smiled slightly. That's exactly why you're the youngest director in bank history. Your judgment is flawless, even under impossible circumstances. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic family, because what happened next proved I'd made exactly the right choice. The consequences cascaded faster than even I'd anticipated. Within 6 hours, our fraud investigation team filed their report with the FBI and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. Federal bank fraud carries serious consequences. Up to 30 years in prison and $1 million in fines. By the next morning, Marcus's other lenders had gotten wind of the investigation. 3 banks called their loans immediately, as is their right when fraud is suspected. Another $8 million in debt came due within 30 days. Marcus called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. Within 48 hours, the bank had frozen Marcus's business accounts pending investigation. His dealerships couldn't make payroll. His luxury inventory couldn't be financed. His whole operation ground to halt. By the end of the week, Marcus had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The flagship dealership deal died instantly. His existing dealerships went into receivership. Everything he'd built, or pretended to build, collapsed like the house of cards it had always been. My mother left 3 voicemails calling me vindictive, cruel, heartless. I deleted them without listening past the first few seconds. My father sent an email asking if I was satisfied with destroying my own brother. I archived it without responding. What they didn't know was that I'd already done the one thing I could do. I'd quietly arranged for Marcus's hourly employees to receive their unpaid wages through a bank workforce protection fund. Not for Marcus, for the 63 people who'd lose jobs through no fault of their own. Because that's what you do when you actually care about people. You help the ones who deserve it. 3 months later I got a letter. Prison stationery. Marcus had been sentenced to 14 months in federal prison for bank fraud, plus 3 years probation and $280,000 in restitution. Apparently, Sentinel wasn't the only bank he'd been lying to. The letter was short. Sir, I was wrong. About everything. You weren't the family disappointment. I was. You built something real while I built lies. I'm sorry it took prison for me to see that. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. Grandma chose right. Marcus. I kept the letter. Not out of sentimentality but as a reminder. Paper beats promises every single time. 6 months after the meeting, my parents' number appeared on my phone. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Hello. Sarah. Dad's voice sounded older, tired. We need to talk. About what? About how wrong we were. About how we treated you for 28 years. About how we enabled Marcus's lies because we wanted to believe he was successful. About how we dismissed the daughter who was actually exceptional. Silence stretched between us. Your mother and I have been in therapy, trying to understand how we failed you so completely. Our therapist suggested we might never have the chance to apologize if we didn't do it now. Okay, I said carefully. I'm listening. We don't deserve your forgiveness. Mom's voice came on speakerphone, thick with tears. We were terrible parents to you. We saw what we wanted to see with Marcus and refused to see who you really were. You deserved better. More silence. I appreciate you saying that, I finally said. I do. But I need you to understand something. I don't need your approval anymore. I stopped needing it 12 years ago when I decided to build my own life. The validation I was looking for? I gave it to myself. We understand, Dad said quietly. We want the chance to know who you really are. If you'll let us. I thought about Grandma, about what she would want. She'd want me to be strong but not bitter. Successful but not cruel. To set boundaries but leave the door open for genuine change. Here's what I'll offer, I said. Sunday dinners once a month. We start fresh. You ask about my actual life, my actual career, my actual achievements. No comparisons to Marcus. No dismissive comments. No assumptions. If you can manage that, we'll see where it goes. Yes, Mom said immediately. Yes, we can do that. And one more thing, I added. I want to start a scholarship fund in Grandma's name. For women pursuing finance careers. I'm putting in the first $100,000. If you want to contribute and be part of honoring her memory properly, you're welcome to help. Dad's voice cracked. We'd like that very much. That was 6 months ago. The Sunday dinners have been awkward, but genuine. My parents ask about my work now and actually listen to the answers. They still don't fully understand what I do, but they're trying. That's more than they ever did before. Marcus gets out of prison next month. I've arranged for him to interview at a local Honda dealership for a sales position. Entry level. It's honest work, and the manager is a client of mine who believes in second chances for people who've genuinely changed. I'm not doing it for Marcus. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. And because Grandma taught me that success isn't about crushing people who hurt you, it's about building something so solid that their opinions can't touch it. Last week, I got promoted to Senior Vice President of Commercial Lending. At 31, I'm now the youngest SVP in Sentinel's history, overseeing a team of 43 lending professionals and managing a $4.1 billion portfolio. My office is bigger now. The view is better. The compensation package is ridiculous. $520,000 base plus performance bonuses. And you know what? I still drive the same Honda Accord. Because my worth was never about what I drove or wore or displayed. It was about what I built when no one was watching. About the character I developed when being dismissed. About the empire I created while being underestimated. Grandma knew that. She saw something in a 16-year-old girl that no one else could see. The quiet determination to prove that being overlooked doesn't mean being without value. Every time I approve a loan for a female entrepreneur, every time I mentor a young professional, every time I make a decision that protects my institution and the honest people who depend on it, I'm honoring her investment. She didn't waste a penny. She invested in exactly the right grandchild. If you've ever had to walk away from toxic family to save yourself, tell me your story in the comments. What would you have done? Does any of this feel familiar? Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something so undeniably successful that the people who dismissed you have to confront what they missed. And then having the grace to offer them a chance to be better. Not because they deserve it, but because you do.